From one of Australia's former leading homicide detectives, this is I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
I think I was about 15, when I realised it got me. Talking to a friend of mine about feeling a bit nauseous lately and stuff like that, and he's going, mate, it's because you're hanging out, that's a smack, it's got you,
How did you afford it at that age?
A few different ways. I had a school uniform, so someone that was moving quite a bit to all the crack houses back then, to the Gatwick, the Hollywood, the Regal, the Beach House and stuff like that, which is sort of all around St Kilda and stuff like that. They were just getting me to move a little bit because I had a school uniform. No one would ever suspect me, and so I did a little bit of that. Sometimes on weekends, when the working girls were getting pulled up and robbed and stuff like that, I'd hold money for them for just a little rock here and there. When I was under 18, I used to do a lot of crime. Used to do a lot of break and enters and stuff like that.
I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
Welcome to another episode of I Catch Killers. Today's guest was addicted to heroin for 22 years. He didn't like himself, and he hurt people close to him. The person he is now is so far removed from that person he's hardly recognisable. Today our guest, Nick Midgley, is in the studio to talk about crime, addiction, love, relationships, masculinity, tattoos and recovery. Let's have a chat to Nick Midgley. Nick Midgley, welcome to I Catch Killers.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me.
Now, Nick, you were addicted to heroin for 22 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, it's a fair whack, mate. It's a fair whack. Yeah.
How long have you been clean for now?
About 4.5 years. Well, clean and sober, 4.5 years.
Yeah. Okay. So it's no alcohol, no drugs,
nothing at all anymore. Yeah.
And is that? And we'll talk more about the stuff you do with Hope and Health.
Yep.
But is that part of it? If you're going to kick one, you got to kick the other, or you just fall into bad habits?
Look, I don't think it is necessarily for anyone. But I believe that anyone that's got any sort of history of of trauma and using any sort of vices to sort of cover up any any undigested living experiences and stuff like that. I don't think you can use anything to sort of block anything. I think there's some people that just sort of run amok for a little while, and go a bit too hard for a little while, and they can sort of return to some sort of social drinking or social. Social stuff. But
I suppose it's innate in you if you've got that addictive personality or you're relying on it. I've seen people, not through work, people I know that were addicted to drugs. They kick that, but then they become alcoholics. That becomes their crutch. Or I've seen others that go from drugs and then find religion.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, with me, I don't think I've ever had so much of an alcohol problem, and it's something that sort of doesn't really sort of that I don't really enjoy that much. But I just can't guarantee my behaviour on the alcohol. I do some stupid stuff that I act out of alignment to my values. I've had a history of cheating on my partners and or gambling and just doing stupid stuff that I'd never do sober. And also to be I don't think there's been any, if or very rarely have I put a needle in my arm, after a period of substantial clean time without having sort of alcohol or something in me as a lubricant.
Alcohol, I see people that say alcohol's not a problem, but every time their life stuffs up.
Yeah, it starts with a drink.
Starts with drinking. And no, I'm fine. And you can speak to the person, the way they conduct their life, the way they go about their business perfect. Then they get on a bender and the world turns upside down again. So. Yeah,
for sure. So, it's just that simple for me, mate. My life's so good now. I might be able to have a drink, but I don't want to risk it. Yeah. I will, not over a beer, I was spewing if I ended up in the position that I was in 4 years ago off a drink,
Start all over again.
Yeah, 100%.
So tell our listeners who Nick Midgley is. What's your background and brief overview of your life, and then we'll dissect it.
I was going to say, it's pretty complex.
You're not going to get away with
question,
that easily.
mate.
So who's Nick?
Mate. Look, I mean, at a general level, I was just a kid from Melbourne that sort of, that grew up and gravitated to drugs really quickly. And at the time, I had no idea why, because I seemed to have come from a decent family, decent area and stuff, My dad was a good provider, spent times at good schools and there was no, from an outside perspective, there was no idea why it happened, and I sort of lived in that sort of confusion, I didn't really know why. But later on, from doing a lot of work on myself, it turned out because of my father was essentially completely absent my whole life, and my mother had her own traumas, so. She went from a really maternal mother to a completely emotionally shut off mother. And as a kid, when you have an experience like that from your maternal parents, when they just emotionally shut off from you, it has a really traumatic effect on you, and so I've got so I walked around essentially in my teenage years with all these abandonment and attachment wounds and stuff like that, and I self-medicated that stuff with heavy drugs.
Okay, that's how you got into it.
Yeah,
it's interesting you say, and I've heard you in one of the many talks that you've done. You talk about your mother's trauma when she was a kid, and that intergenerational trauma, how it carries through, because you don't fully understand it until you can stand back and look back. And right, that's what it's about. But it's such formative years as a child, and if you said your dad was absent but providing, and then your mum shut down emotionally, it can play with a kid's mind, can't it? Yeah,
it can. It definitely does. It definitely does, and it's on a real deep level, and that's the thing that that I'm glad that I got to go through it as well. Because to some degree, my eldest son will also have similar stuff, with me raising him on my own and essentially having to grow up with him, and so he's going to have similar stuff. He does have similar stuff, a bit different, but it's good that I went through it, because now I can understand and I can help him through his process too, it's...
It makes sense, and you clearly... You look back at your life and you're dissecting your life, and it gives you an understanding that you don't necessarily see when you're going through it, but and knowing the impact that you can have on your child. Now, I'm going to ask you up front, the tattoos, mate, you're covered in it. What? Firstly, when did you decide to cover the body in tattoos?
Mate, I got my first tattoo at 13.
Yeah.
It's something that's always intrigued me. I had a friend's older brother drew some crap on us, and then I had to do a lot of cover-up work, and I committed myself early, and then it just got to that stage where I reached that tipping point where I went over halfway, and then everything else started to look naked. So I went all out.
It can become addictive in itself.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. But all my stuff, all my stuff's my own sort of design stuff. Like my tattoos is actually an artist as well.
Right.
So I'd give him an idea and he'd draw it up for me and stuff like that. So it's not like a stencil job that I went to Bali and spent 2 days getting stencil stuck on me that everyone else has got to.
That's good advice. Let's give advice to anyone listening. Don't get a tattoo in Bali. It's not a good idea. You might think it's cool. It's like coming back in a Bing-Tang singlet.
For sure.
You think it's on. Covered in tattoos like that, people would react to you differently. Like, you're a big, strong bloke. You're covered in tattoos, and I would imagine you get and because it's a podcast, you got the neck tattoos, the full sleeve tattoos. Yep. Do you get different reactions from people, or they assume you're a type of person?
I think I do. I think I do sometimes, but I generally, it generally doesn't bother me so much anymore. I used to really sort of take things personally, the way people would react to me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I walked around my whole childhood assuming I was getting judged. Whether I was or I wasn't. I lived in, I lived in fear of what people thought of me. I needed validation from other people and stuff like that. The reality is, mate, I like tattoos. I work for myself. I don't have to. I don't have to sort of meet up to anyone else's standards now.
Right, you're not working in a bank or...
No, that's right. So.
Is there a story to them?
I mean, like it starts off with like, all sort of, you can see sort of like a criminal past on my back and stuff like that, and sort of now it's sort of merged into more of a spiritual thing.
Okay. Well, we all evolve.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We all evolve.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your childhood first up. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Melbourne.
Okay.
Always in the city, Melbourne. Yeah.
And when you got into drugs early, and I think I heard that you were using heroin at 13, or
at 13,
injecting.
Injecting, yeah.
You're still at school?
Yeah.
Explain how that played out.
It's quite funny. Like actually, I haven't been diagnosed with ADD or anything, but I always struggled at school. My eldest got diagnosed with ADD, and when I took him to the paediatrician, he was rattling off all the symptoms of ADD, and I like fuck, they all resonated with me, every single one of them.
Really know what it was?
No, I didn't know what it was, and like and I'm not going to get diagnosed now because like I've learned to live with it and around it, and like I struggled to digest information in school. Like I used to go to school, I used to feel dumb because I couldn't really understand what was going on. Like I could read, I just couldn't digest the information that I was reading. And when I found heroin, it's like just my mind just relaxed, and I was able just to like focus on what I was doing, And mate, I honestly thought that like I'd found the holy grail, of like of substance,
this is a secret,
and I thought
secret to life.
Yeah, I thought if I can use it, because I thought people were like junkies were like, predispositioned to become junkies. They came from like, really shitty backgrounds and stuff like that, which I didn't. I had a bit of ego even back then, and for a long time I dabbled. Like I didn't actually have a habit till I was, 15 or 16. Like I dabbled, like I used it regularly for quite a few years, and I was able to get like, quite a lot of schoolwork done from doing absolutely nothing.
You could still function.
Yeah. Mate, most people didn't know I was using until about 16. My mum and my dad found out because I ran away from boarding school. And they went up there to grab my stuff and empty my closets and stuff like that. And they found using paraphernalia in my school blazer. But like I think most people didn't know because I had so much shame around it. Like I didn't tell people, I didn't talk to people and stuff. So most people didn't know that I that I had any sort of like drug problem outside, a bit of a chuff problem or something, until I was about 16.
Okay, I'm interested in the mindset. Like you would have, even at that tender age, you would have heard the warnings about heroin. You have one hit and you're hooked and all that.
Yeah,
I've spoken to a lot of people that think, that's for the other guy. I'm a bit different. I'm a bit special. I can control it. Is that the thought process you had?
I think it was what I had, but I like from now working with a lot of other people in addiction too, it's a really common thing. Like it's a lot of people feel like that. A lot of people feel like the amount of times I've heard about someone on a Bucks party or something, like have a someone brings out a crack pipe and and they have a few puffs on a pipe, and mate, fucking a year and a half later they've lost their families and stuff like that.
I've heard them say they're chasing that high again. It's so euphoric that you're chasing it, and before you realise that you are what you thought you'd never would be.
And that was a really scary, because that was a really scary time for me. I think I was about 15. When I realised it got me. Like I had this moment where a friend of mine, I was talking to a friend of mine about not being able to sleep well, and I was feeling a bit nauseous lately and stuff like that. And he's going, mate, it's because you're hanging out. Like that's a smack. It's got you. And I was like, oh fuck yeah, right, okay, maybe I've been pushing a bit hard. So in my head I thought, I'll just stop. And then when I actually tried, like I just couldn't.
You, virtually, and this is a cautionary tale to people that go down that path. You think you're not addicted. You think you can step away. It's just a matter of I'm choosing not to at this stage. But then before you realise it, you're addicted.
Yeah,
and ain't got that choice.
Yeah, and then you actually try, you know, and then you realise like it's got a. I mean, heroin's got the physical pull. You know, it's got obviously the physical withdrawals as well, but it's also a mental pull as well. You know, and the mental pull. The mental pull triggers the physical pull, you know. So, like, you know, if you think about it, all of a sudden your body starts to crave it and withdraw from it, you know.
Okay, so breaking that down, you're saying that mental drive to have a hit.
Yeah.
Then you're physically reacting it because it's in your mind.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, for example, like, it took me like 2-3 years from my first shot to develop a habit, right?
Okay.
Now, if I have a couple Panadeine Forte or anything with a bit of opiates in it, like my receptors just go crazy, and I start, like, you know, withdrawing straight away, you know, like,
okay.
You know, so like I don't take any opiates because, like, it's, you know, like all my receptors are so sensitive to that stuff now, so I just stay away from it all.
Okay. Yeah. How did you afford it at that age?
Well, I mean, because I had a school uniform. I mean, a few different ways. I had a school uniform, so someone that was moving quite a bit to all the, you know, all the crack houses back then. You know, to the Gatwick, the Hollywood, the Regal, the Beach House and stuff like that, which is sort of all around St Kilda and stuff like that. They were just getting me to move a little bit because I had a school uniform. No one would ever suspect me, you know, and so I did a little bit of that. Sometimes on weekends, you know, when the working girls were getting pulled up and robbed and stuff like that, you know, I'd hold money for them for just a little rock here and there. You know, when I was under 18, I used to do a lot of crime. Used to do a lot of break and enters and stuff like that. And but yeah, look, you know, but I was. You know, like, you know, I did all my crime pretty much under 18. You know, because I was so fearful of that life. Like, I was in it because I had a habit, but like I was so fucking terrified the whole time I was using at that age. You know, when I was 17, I got taken over to Sicily by a mentor who showed me how to work and taught me a couple of trades and stuff like that. And I didn't necessarily get rid of the drug problem, but like I was able to sort of, you know, live a life of a working man, and you know, and then drive down to like Richmond or Footscray, go get my drugs, and come back to a, you know, to a normal life.
And,
you know?
and we'll go further into it, but it was almost like you were a functioning heroin addict. You were doing some work as you got older.
Yeah, as I was 17.
But before we leave your childhood, so you're a young bloke, 15, 16 or whatever, and when you said the working girls, so sex workers, and you were holding some stuff for them. You'd get a bit. I was holding
money for them, and so they wouldn't get robbed, and then they'd give me, you know, when they got on, they'd break off a little rock for me or something like that, you know. So, I mean, it's just stuff like that. Look, I mean, just like, you know, there was a couple things that just happened as, you know, when I was a kid, you know, like, you know, like you didn't trust anyone. I remember, like, you know, when we used to do like break and enters and stuff like that, you know, one of us was sort of like, you know, stay in the, you know, stolen car at the front. The other one would sort of go in and grab what they want and stuff like that, you know, but neither of you trusted either of you, you know, like, I remember, like, you know, if I used to go into the house, you know, mate, there was a wallet on the kitchen table, I'd grab the cash and that would just be fair game for me going in and stuff like that. And
no honour among thieves.
No, that's right, right. And I remember this one time, you know, like you know, my little Cowie, you know, I used to do a lot of these with, you know, like we just didn't trust each other, and I felt something was like was off, you know, and we pull up at 7-Eleven, because back in the day when you get your prepaid credit, he's going, mate, can you go in and get some credit so we can get on, you know? I was like, yeah, I'll go in, just give me the keys, you know, because I just assumed that he's going to drive off in the car with all that stuff.
All the stuff.
And he's going, show me your pockets, you know. So he like, I knew he was going to run off, and he knew I had stuff in my pockets, you know. And I just had this that was a big realisation that, like, just living a fucking really lonely life where I didn't trust anyone around me. You know?
Were you still with your family? Were you still living at home?
Nah, not at that stage. Where
were you putting your head down?
My mum kicked me out, I think, at 13 or 14, I think, and then my dad at 15. You know, she kicked me out to my dad's, and then my dad not long after.
So where were you putting your head down?
Well, a lot of the time, the mentor that took me over to Sicily. You know, but I slept in stolen cars as well. I just just wherever, you know, or just stay up all night as well, you know, like just but yeah, you know, there's always like there was always, you know, like some sort of like little halfway crack house I could stay at too, and like, you know, you give someone a little bit of a rock, or, you know, through one of your urns or whatever.
But it's a pretty treacherous and dangerous world at that age, like to be hanging around in those environments.
Yeah, it's, you know, and the reason I was so scared is because, like, obviously because of my age, I was really vulnerable. You know, I was really vulnerable because, I mean, you know, when you're around drugs like, you know, heroin and back then it's when ice was first coming out. It was coming out from the Indonesians. They used to call it shabu, and it was first coming out. And you know, when you're that age, you know, you're really vulnerable, man. These people are really fucking desperate, you know, and like, you know, and you know, I mean, when I was a bit older and I'd go in and stuff like that, it didn't have that sort of same fear around it. Like, people didn't sort of like stand over me, but people saw me coming from, you know, a mile away back then, you know, and you know, just you know, certain stuff happened, you know, just you know.
Did anyone try and steer you in the right direction? There, we'll talk about your mentor, but before we get on to your mentor, anyone like family, relatives, school teachers, anyone just grab hold of you and go, mate, what are you doing?
Mate, no, not really. Not in the way of like. I mean, my parents were just lost, mate. You know, I mean, they had their own shit going on. They had their own like separations, and you know, they had all their own stuff going on too. And I think they were really worried about my siblings as well. I think they chalked me up as a bit lost cause. Let's just worry about the two that we still got.
Older, younger,
you know?
siblings?
Older brother, younger sister. Yeah.
They didn't go down the path you went.
I mean, my brother probably drunk too much and you know, and smoked too much pot as a kid, you know. But no, but not like I did. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, who's this mentor that took you over to Sicily? What was that relationship about?
Well, it was a bit of he was a bit of a notorious.
Sounds like someone that come from Sicily.
Yeah, it was a bit of a knockabout around Melbourne too. You know, back in the days when. You know, when you use smack, you know, no cream trusted you anymore. So he sort of got like, he sort of, had his like, little, his run was over, so to speak, when I met him, and he was just, you know, essentially just became a user, but like mate, he thought school was really important, and he knew that I was doing it, and he knew that I was going okay at it. So, like, you know, I met him when I was about 16, you know, and he's going, mate, look, I'm going to go to Sicily to get clean, you know, and he's going, I want to take you, let's just finish the school. I had about 6 or 7 months of school left or something, and he said, mate, when you finish your school, we'll go overseas, you know, and I'll take you over there. And he's going, mate, you won't live till you're 21 if you live like this, you know, and so...
Okay.
I didn't actually think he was going to do it, you know. Like I just, you know. I mean,
what was in it for him?
Nothing.
He just genuine.
No. I mean, look. I mean, he was one of the guys that used to get me to sort of, you know, run dope around for him. So maybe he had a bit of a conscience. You know, he felt like fuck. I've He didn't start me on the gear, but you know, my habits certainly fucking went right up because of what I was doing for him and, you know, the guys he was working with, you know. So like,
and so he was addicted too, and he wanted to go clean himself up, but go back. I assume he's from there originally, or had family over there. Yeah. So he said, "You finish school, and then I'll take you over to Sicily." Yeah. And okay, tell us about that experience.
That was an incredible experience, man. That was incredible. That's I mean, I learned. They got such a hard work ethic over there. Like when I first went over there, like he was a really hard man. You know, he was a really hard man, and when I first went over there, I really struggled because he was so hard on me, and like, you know, I was so like, you know, emotionally and mentally weak then. You know, like a day's hard work for me seemed like a fucking death sentence. You know,
and
like,
what type of work were you doing?
Well, mainly farm work, or like, you know, I worked as a labourer in a steel factory and stuff like, you know, but like they were long days, man. Like they were like, you know,
the Italians work very hard.
Yeah. Especially on the farms. Like, you know, you arrive on site or on the farm, you know, just before the sun's comes up, and the second it's light enough to be able to see, you start working, and you work until you can't see what you're doing anymore, you know.
Did you get off the drugs when you were over there?
Yeah, Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, I was still drunk. I had the occasional bit of coke and stuff like that, you know. But like I was so broke, like if I got on the coke, it's only because like someone that had it would give me a couple of lines or something, you know. Like, man, I was earning about like €100 a week, when I was 17, which is about what equivalent of $150 a week, you know. And I working my ass off too, like So that was like the apprentice wage back then, So
did your family worry about you, or did you have anyone back here going?
No, it was a one-way ticket.
Yeah, because
my dad paid for the ticket. He gave me a one-way ticket, like that, and that's no shit. And when I actually wanted to come back, he didn't let me. He said, "Mate, you can come back when you earn it," So
okay,
yeah,
And how long did you spend over there?
3 years in total.
Yeah.
It was on and off a bit. Like I came back a couple of times and relapsed and quickly went back over. Like I just. Yeah, and then it just got to a stage where, I thought I might have to live here because, like, I just couldn't do Melbourne, but, yeah.
When, okay, so how old, you've 3 years, 17, you're looking 20, 21.
Yeah.
You've come back here, so straight back to Melbourne?
Yeah, so I went straight back to Melbourne. I think I lasted a few months before I got back on it. And then when I was...
Can I stop you there, Nick? Just tell me the mindset there. Like, you've gone to all the trouble of going overseas to tidy your act up.
Yep.
You've come back and you lasted for a couple of months. Were you lying to yourself or deluding yourself and just going, I'll just have a taste and I'll be right? What was going through your mind?
I think every time I came back from Sicily, I'd come back with the intention not to ever use again.
Yep.
And I feel really strong when I was over there. But Melbourne itself is, for me, it's a really dangerous city for me to be in. I've had a shot in like every toilet in the city.
You know the streets.
Yeah, I know the streets. I know all the areas. I know who to look for. And the thing is, for me to get on now up where I live, I mean, man, there's all this stuff. There's heroin, there's ice, there's all that stuff there. But for me to go get on up there, I'd have to call up a few people and find out who's not doing too well, chase it down, or go bump into a couple of sort of like rough looking people and try to sort of weasel my way in a bit and stuff. Whereas in Melbourne, I'll get one bad thought, I know exactly where to go and I can get on quick, and so there's not much of it. Yeah, there's not much buffer time. If I have a thought of using now, the process of actually getting it on is big enough for me now for some bit of sense to slip into a little gap and just go, mate.
I understand what you're saying. Like, if it's there, readily accessible, it's easy. You could just have this thought in your head and you're on it straight away.
Yeah, 100%.
The environment you're in now, it's not that simple.
No, 100%. Okay. Yeah.
So how long did you stay in Melbourne for?
Mate, not long. I ended up getting myself in a bit of trouble.
What was that about?
Between a mate of mine and me, we had this idea to sell a bit of coke and a bit of psychosis. We flushed it and and we owed a bit of money. We had money coming in, but like it was a while away, and I just needed to get away for a bit,
Talk us through that, because I think so. You're using, and then all of a sudden you're becoming paranoid or whatever, and you flushed it. You're thinking the cops are coming through the door.
Yeah, mate. I was never going to be a successful drug dealer because of because I use drugs too heavily, and so. Mate, if I've got a fucking bunch of coke, I'm not just gonna sit there and wait for people to buy it. Like, I'll be using it before they come. Yeah.
So when you've flushed that, you're obviously owing. You got it on tick, and you owed the money back to the people you got it from, but you ain't got the drugs anymore.
Yeah,
so Were you?
Well, I had money owed to me too.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't the only reason. I had to get out of town just because my whole life was just fucking falling apart. So I confronted the people I had the money to. I said, look, I'm not going anywhere. I'm getting out for a bit. I've got this money coming in. I just gotta just fucking trust me. And I asked my mum, who kicked me out, as I said before, as a teenager, who moved to Byron Bay, probably to get away from me, to be honest. And I begged her. I said, Mum, I've just got to get away from here. My life's just fucking falling apart. And she said that, she's going, well, if you come up here, you come up on the condition that you enroll into this rehab up here, which is the Buttery. And my dad, she's going, they got like a 6 or 7 month wait list, so you gotta call before you come up to get on the wait list, and then you got to call every week when you're on there. And so I called when I came up, and then I had no intention to actually go there, I just thought, mate, it's 6-7 months is enough time for me to get my shit together where I can come back, for whatever reason I always felt like I had to be back in Melbourne. I didn't think I could actually
break away from it.
I didn't think I could break away from it. I didn't think I wanted to either, because when I first came to Byron Bay, I didn't see it as the beautiful place it is now. I saw it as a really fucking boring place that weird people went and stuff. It was my perception of it, because I was so in the city Melbourne. I was so enmeshed into that lifestyle and stuff. Mate, look, eventually I stayed there long enough that, mate, that place, something happens in that place, man. Even today, it's like my little spiritual home, man. Every time my life sort of implodes on me, I always end up going back there. And mate, just over time, just over that 6 month period, man, something shifted in me, And a friend of mine who I met up there, he ended up being a training partner of mine,
Right.
And he went through that Buttery program, and he stayed up there after that. And he said, mate, look, why don't you just go for 5 weeks, and if after 5...
To the Buttery program.
Buttery.
Yeah.
And he's going, after 5 weeks, if you don't want to go, you call me, I'll pick you up, I'll take you to the airport and go back down to Melbourne, And, mate, I respected him enough to, I thought, fuck, why not? I can do 5 weeks, I was clean, I was sober, I wasn't hanging out, so I thought, why not, And, I think he knew that I needed 5 weeks there to be able to make an informed decision. Because I went there and I had people throwing me under the bus for not doing my jobs, and
you're gonna hate it first.
And in my head I thought, just a bunch of fucking dogs, fuck this, I'm not staying here, and just whinges and but after 5 weeks, I had this realization, because I already had a son at that stage. My son was 3 or 4 years old.
How old were you?
I was 20 when he was born. So 21 when he was born.
Okay, so you got a kid. Were you with the lady or?
No. Look, we only lasted when he was born. We only lasted about a year and a half.
Okay.
And the only reason we actually probably go that year and a half was because she'd been pregnant with him. We were. Fuck, we were never good for each other at all. But when I was at the rehab and I knew I had a kid, I had just had that realization. It was about 4 or 5 weeks in. I thought, okay, well that's my time that I promised this guy. But I've got to. Maybe I could do something better with my life. Just maybe, maybe there's fucking something else I can do.
Were you working? Where was the money? Not when you're in the program, but where were you making your money from? Or that was
in Melbourne.
Yeah,
in Melbourne, I ended up working as a paver and a block layer. And they were on all the on the union sites and EBA rates, and I was making really good money as a really young kid. When I say young kid, as a 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-old,
getting an adult's wage and
from working in Sicily from $150 to bringing home $2,000 a week.
And was that going to drugs or
all of it.
Yeah,
all of it. Back then, I had a really nice apartment I was renting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But back then rent was only $250 or $300 a week. And I was on my own, so I wouldn't even cook. I'd eat out every day. When my outgoings were about $500 to $600 a week, and then every other cent went to
the drugs.
Tobacco and drugs. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
When did you get into your fitness side of things?
Probably 2021. 21. 21. I had little moments all through, but 20. I had my first fight at 21, and I trained from it at 20.
You got into boxing?
Yeah, I was at boxing, yeah.
It doesn't sort of equate the type of training you need to box with putting shit in your body like heroin.
Yeah.
How'd you juggle those? Because they're sort of polar opposites.
Well, man, not well, and that's probably reflected on my boxing career as well. Like, you know, like I just, you know, like I could fight, you know, and I'd be willing to fight and stuff like that, you know. So, like, you know, I had a natural bit of aggression, had enough ticker and balls to be able to, like, you know, fucking
hold your hands up,
hold my hands up, mix it with people and stuff. But man, like, you know, if I was training or fighting an 8-round fight and stuff like that, you know, like, you know, my lifestyle factors would come back to haunt me, you know.
Yeah,
like, you
you'd
know,
be feeling a bit tired in the second round.
I had my last fight. This is probably my most important fight too. My last fight, like. Mate, I trained for it in rehab, and I had a heroin overdose like before I went to rehab, where I couldn't walk for 2 weeks, you know, and like like I got myself fucking to a stage where I came out of rehab, a 2 week sparring out of rehab, and then I jumped in and had a fight, and you know, fuck, I went in there after 30 seconds because I was smoking like 30 cigarettes a day in rehab. Like, my whole body went all lactic and stuff like that, you know. But like, you know, when I walked out of that fight, even though like I lost, and then I lost against someone, you know, like a tough journeyman, you know, that I knew was going to press me. You know, I had to be at my fucking best.
And you hadn't put in.
No. Well, I mean, I put in as best I could, you know. But there was another realization. My lifestyle factors fucking just got to me. Mate, I'll tell you a story too, because this is one that. This is an experience that I had through my boxing that was real pivotal for the rest of my life. Like, I was sparring like Barry Hall for his fight against Paul Gallen, you know, and Barry Hall's trainer and the promoters and stuff like that. They said, "Oh, mate, if you're willing to spar him for his fight and stuff like that, we'll get you on the undercard." I was like, "Yeah, fucking beautiful." Like, you know, I was looking to sort of get fit and you know, and have a fight, and you know, it was a fucking beautiful opportunity, beautiful venue and stuff. So I thought, yeah, well, you know, why not? And then I think it was about a week before that fight, I got offered an Australasian title shot in New Zealand if I'd won that fight, you know. And it was only a few weeks after the fight I had, you know. And I was like, fuck you, because in my head, like, when I finished the fight, I want a bender after, you know. That was my reward system, you know. And I was married at the time, and I won that fight on the undercard of the Paul Gallen Barry Hall fight. And my then wife, she asked me, she's going, "What are you going to do?" Because we had plans to go have a few drinks and dinner out.
You've won that fight, but you got another shot
in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time, and she said, "What are you going to do? You're gonna drink, you know? You're gonna have a couple of drinks." I was like, yeah, we'll just go out for a couple, you know. And so we did, and you know, we got a bag of Coke, and I finished the bag. And this was in Melbourne, at Margaret Court Arena in Melbourne, so my old stomping grounds, you know. Man, then I went out, man. I got an 8-ball. I found a couple of fits, and you know, and man, I went back, and man, I put an 8-ball of Coke in my arm after not fucking, you know, using it. So I had, like, you know, 150 needle marks in my fucking arm, because Coke only lasts like, you know, 15 minutes, you know, and I had it through IV. I just kept on fucking booting it up my arm. I remember my wife came out of the room like 6 hours later after a sleep, and she looked at me, and I was fucking leaning over the fridge, and she's just going, like, she wasn't upset, like, not. She wasn't angry, like, you know, she was just fucking
disappointed.
She's just, no, not even disappointed. She was just like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, you know, what is wrong with you? You know?" I mean, that look, I was just like, "Oh my god, like, fucking, who am I? What am I doing? You know?" And anyway, so I still took the fight over in New Zealand, but I remember warming up, you know, for that fight, and I, you know, it was an Australasian title shot. You know, it was against a tough New Zealander. Like, I knew I had to be my very fucking best. And I was so fucking disappointed in myself. I'm warming up for the fight and just thinking, fuck, you really let yourself down, you know. It's this sabotaging behaviour that I had my whole fucking life, you know. And I remember, you know, like I made him work for, you know, I think it was like 3 or 4 rounds before it got stopped, you know. But I made him work, and like, you know, it was, you know, I was competitive in that fight, and I thought to myself, fuck, you know, you fucked that up for yourself. You know, you could have won that fucking fight, and you know, you fucked that up for yourself. And like, you know, I thought, okay, that's happened now. I'll chalk that up as a learning experience, but never again in life am I gonna sabotage that stuff. You know?
Okay,
So,
and I take what you're saying there. It's a metaphor for life and something that you can learn. And I think I get into a bit of trouble on icatchkillers because I love talking boxing stories. But it's just it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think it is so many valuable life lessons to learn because you can't cheat it in the boxing ring. If you've taken shortcuts, you're going to get found out in the boxing ring. And
100%.
if you could have that realisation in life, we're not just looking at boxing, we're looking at the way you approach your life. Like if you're taking the shortcuts and you're not fully committing, you're going to be found out. And is that the lesson that you got in that situation?
Well, you'll be found out. Like in the boxing ring, you get found out. But like in the rest of life, you just don't get to fucking experience life that well. You know, like mate, if you're gonna start a business and the second it gets a little bit hard, you back off, man. You spent all your money on a business that's failed. And every business that I've ever had has only done well after that. That little bit of pressure that you feel, or if you jump into a relationship and you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and that way if it doesn't, you the first little argument, you're just like, oh fuck this, I'm out, or I never really loved her anyway, or whatever. All you're doing is robbing yourself of a fucking good experience.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there with a relationship, that you're not giving it a real go, but if you don't fully commit, it didn't work out because you haven't committed to it. But and the same with business. So all these are the lessons in life. So for the naysayers on icatchkillers that we talk about boxing all the time, that's because there are some valuable lessons to learn.
For sure.
So when you see that, you would have been disappointed at yourself. That was a chance to progress in something you're obviously passionate about.
Well, yeah. But boxing for me, that would have been my limit. If I'd have won an Australian title or an Australasian title, I would have been wrapped.
Yeah.
That was my my goal. Like I won a state title, I was happy with that. But like I would have loved to win a national or an Australasian title. That would have been something that I would have thought, fuck, I've really overachieved here. That would have been great. But my boxing for me, I trained myself pretty much all, my last few amateur fights and pretty much all my pro fights except for one. For me, it was just this fucking escape from myself,
Did it make you feel better about yourself, like doing something where you're trying to take some pride in what you're doing?
Yeah, it wasn't even so much the external stuff. Like I think it was nice to get the pats on the back from people. I think it was, but for me, I was so tortured mentally. I didn't realise this at the time. Like that. The only time I wasn't dreading the past or fearful of the future was, when I was fucking, boxing. Because when someone's in front of you trying to hit you, like, man, you're not focusing on all the shameful things I've done in the past or all my doubts I have of myself in the future and stuff like that. You're just there. And after you exert that much energy and you walk out the ring, you get this big dopamine rush for an hour or two, and then I'd have 3 hours of not
thinking about your problems.
Not thinking about me and my shit and my problems. Yeah. And then, mate, just darkness would fucking come back over me after that, you know, like, as I never understood myself. I never knew how to look at myself. I never took ownership of anything. I didn't know how to work through anything. And so, for me, it was just that little reprieve from this fucking horrible state of fucking living that I was living in.
You touched on something, like and you made the point, like, you're not thinking about anything else if someone's hitting you in the head, and you're thinking about trying to avoid it or return the shot.
Yeah.
That helped me through being a homicide detective as long as I was, and people go, well, what do you do to relax? And I go, well, I can forget about work the moment I step into a ring and someone's trying to beat the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about the pressure of the work or the horrible things that I've seen at work. So I understand that it is a form of escapism.
Yeah, because it's hard to explain that to people that don't get it. It's one of the reasons now, like, I actually feel mentally in a much better place, and physically I feel like I'm in pretty good shape too. It's like I don't feel like it's not that I couldn't fight now, couldn't do that now. Yeah. But mate, like the thought of me training really hard to hurt someone now, or like even if I can desire to be hit now, isn't there? And I think that's just because of like the fucking internal work I've done on myself, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, like it was something I really needed back then. It's just not something that motivates me now.
Okay. In one of the podcasts you did, and some of the stuff I've read about you made a comment, and I think I've captured it, but I'd like you need to love yourself in order to heal. And you're talking about you were going the pain, and the boxing ring gave you an escape from all the trauma and different stuff that you've been through. What's your view on that? If I make the statement, or pulling out stuff that you've said, you need to love yourself to heal. What's that all about?
I mean, look, I just think we need to love ourselves, full stop. You know, and so what I do, what I aim to do with the rehab thing now is to show people pathways to learn how to accept themselves and love themselves. But what I do outside the rehab too, I do like coaching and stuff like that, help do mentoring and stuff like that, and I've got a process that I do with people, one that I got taken through as well, which shows us who we actually are, like and who we are, if, like outside of our ego, outside of all our labels, and and learn to become okay with that, accepting that, and learn to love that, because if we don't accept ourselves, man, that just gets projected on the outside, and it affects our lives in a big way,
Do you sense? Do you get the sense that there's people that don't love themselves as self-sabotage? Yeah,
mate, and I think if most people are really honest, if you ask most people, do you actually love yourself, or do you like yourself, or accept yourself? If people are really honest, I reckon it'd be in the 90% of people would say they wouldn't. I think there's a real discord from people living as they are, and it can be seen by people sort of needing to be part of the masses and part of the trends and stuff like that, and that's a big sign of people just being disconnected from who they are. Like when you said to me about the tattoos and stuff like it can have these negative connotations and stuff like that, but I'm okay with me, and whatever decision I make for me is okay with me and stuff like that. Whereas in a lot of people, if like a new set of sneakers come and stuff like that, they need those, or they need to drive a certain car to feel a certain way, and they need to be seen at certain places with certain people and all that stuff, and mate, validation's nice. Like it's nice. It's not like I don't like it. It's just I don't need it anymore. And I feel like that's the separator when I think there's two types of conflict. There's the conflict. There's internal conflict and external conflict. We get to choose which one, and I feel like 90% of people have their internal conflict where they look to be part of the crowd, but then they have to live with internal conflict that says you're fucking lying to yourself, you're lying to everyone around you just so you can blend in. And then there's the people there's a 5 to 10% that have the external conflict where they do everything that they know they need to do for themselves, which is how I try to live today, and most of the time I do. But then you get the external conflict, you get people calling you weird, and people calling you like, what are you doing? Like, you fucking waking up at 1:30, you fucking weirdo, you're obsessed, I post really vulnerable, open stuff about my life and my journey on my socials and stuff like that, and I get people fucking saying whatever about it, man. But I don't give a fuck, because that's the external conflict. But internally, for the first time ever in my life, I've been okay with myself. For someone that's running from himself his whole life and sticking needles in his fucking arms and stuff like that, that's the repercussions of me not living, not living in alignment to me, So I've got no choice. See, other people's, the repercussions for other people not living as who they are, they're not as big as mine. I've got no choice, man. I either live, and adopt this lifestyle that I learned how to live through some fucking incredible people that taught me how to live this way. Or the alternative for me is really fucking bad. So. Well,
you touched on stuff that, and while you're talking, I'm sort of reflecting on the things in my life about that internal conflict or external conflict, and I was in the cops for a long time. Now, that's an organisation where you're meant to conform.
Yeah.
And, if you step out of line or stick your head up or whatever, you tend to get dragged back into this is how we do it in this organisation.
Yeah.
As everyone knows that listens to the podcast, that my career ended in tears and controversy.
Yeah.
Stop laughing at me, Nick. Shit happens.
I know about it, yeah.
But I feel good within myself because
Yeah.
I was being true to myself.
Yeah.
Like there was aspects of when allegations were made at me, I could have taken a knee and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've been suffering stress, I was working, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
And I chose a different path. I've said, bullshit.
Yeah.
I own everything that I did, and I'm not going to apologise for it. Now, I was going through all the dilemmas in my mind. Do you take the easy path? And the easier path would have been to show contrition and fall back into line.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been true to myself. Now, I could have done it easier. I could have done it easier when, the front page of the paper and you got me standing there going, I'd rather go to jail than pay a fine. That's not a good strategy when you're about to go to court.
Yeah.
But looking back now, and it's been 4 or 5 years, I'm so glad I've taken that path because I don't know if I could have lived with myself if I wasn't being true to myself. So a lot of what you've touched on there, I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be criticised. People aren't going to like you.
100%.
People aren't going to like me. But if you're doing what you believe to be the right thing and it's your journey, I think you got to hold on to those.
Yeah, for sure. And the criticism doesn't sting when you're being good with yourself. You know, criticism's it's only really hurtful when you're needing the validation of other people. You know what I mean? So, like I said, If I'm taking criticism personally today, like I know I'm not living the best as I can. Like I'm not honouring myself in some way, you know. So I'm much like you, you know. And not only that, like, you know, when people actually do live and they do honour their truth and stuff like that, it's admirable. Like I found what you did was really admirable. I've got a huge amount of respect for what you did, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like with other people that have had similar experiences like you and I have had, the people that sort of like, regardless of like any sort of like external pressures, they just stand in their truth, and they've, you know, like I look at that shit and just go, fuck, that's fucking cool. That's
I
look
at the people that I look up to, or the people that have been mentors, or that have always walked their own path and stayed true to themselves, and I like to honour the people that have trained me to do that. But it comes at a price. But when and someone once said to me, and I can't remember the exact quote, but the quality of life is often demonstrated by the quality of the people who criticise you. And I'm saying, like, some of the people that attacked me, well, I couldn't give a stuff what they think about, like, when it's all said and done. And that's not arrogance. That's not me going, I'm better than you. It's just, your opinion doesn't count in my world. I don't value your opinion because I don't value you as a person. You got to balance that with sometimes where you criticise, it's justifiable, and that's you've. If you're aware of the type of person you are, you got to check yourself then and go, okay, well, that's a fair call. Okay, I'll pull my head in. But again, that's being true to yourself. You're trying to improve yourself, and I get the sense with your life. And when we get into part 2, we'll talk about what you're doing with Hope in Health and the way that you've turned your life around. But okay, you accept. This life that I'm living is shit. You use the boxing example. You know, I'm fighting for a title, but I've been putting shit in my body, and it's not preparing for it properly. So, you got to have some acknowledgement, and you got to learn, and life is a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
and that's exactly right. So, you know, I've got that perspective with life now. You know, like, I'm never a victim now. You know, like, I take full responsibility for everything. So I'm the common denominator in all my shit. You know, everything's happening for me, not to me. You know, so when I'm going through something, you know, like I'm thinking, or like, you know, I'm fucking, you know, coming up against stuff, you know, I'm thinking, well, what am I meant to learn through this, you know? And that just that perception of just perceiving life that way, mate, just makes it a fucking journey, you know what I mean? Like, rather than this fucking struggle, you know, And mate, it's been it's been a complete life-changing experience, just that, you know.
I get what you're saying, and I think it is a valuable comment there that you don't always see yourself as a victim. You go, okay, why did this happen? I see there the type of lessons that you've learnt through your journey.
For sure. I mean, it's hard to see when life doesn't go the way we predict it to.
Yeah.
You know, we plan it to or hope it goes. You know, we look at it as like unfortunate or like it's not this fucking blessing that it is. You know, but like, but you know, if you can actually sort of like, if you spend a bit of time like auditing your life and reviewing your life and stuff like that, you look back at all those moments that when things didn't go the way you plan.
Yeah.
Man, it's because like fucking what really needed to happen ended up happening, you know. And I always feel like that, and that's the thing about slowing down for me now. You know, I always lived life really fast paced, like fucking next thing. When you actually slow down, you look at life, you just go, man, like everything is just working out in this incredible way, you know. It's got hardships, it's got challenges, it's got like heartbreaks, it's got all this stuff in it, like, you know. Mate, we, you know, as humans, like we're like fucking pre-programmed, and I blame social media for this a lot as well.
Yeah.
We're pre-programmed to like chase happiness and comfort and stuff like that, you know, because everyone's gloating about like this fucking life that they want everyone else to see them having and stuff. So we feel shame when we're not fucking feeling happy, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're human beings. We've got this full array of fucking emotions, you know, that, you know, and we feel like if we're not happy, we've got to suppress it, you know. It's like, you know, but the actuality is, man, like part of this fucking human experience is to experience all of it, you know.
Yeah, well,
like,
before you mentioned social media. Before social media, I used to always make the comment, and I can't judge on relationships. I've had some good ones, bad ones, and failings. But stop.
I've had both, but they all end up in fails.
Shit happens.
Just gone through another one. Fucking hell,
sorry to hear that. But I would always laugh, not laugh, but I'd make the comment to people close to me. You know, the couples that you see in the first 6 months, they're saying how much they love each other, and it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's like pre-social media days. Look how happy we are. Yeah. And you could almost go, that's going to fail.
Yeah.
Like, it's they're trying to present this persona that life's perfect. Yeah. And you think it can't be that perfect because life is not that perfect. And,
that's
so
right.
that takes them down a notch.
Yeah.
But look, let's leave it there for part one.
Yep, sure.
When we get back, I want you to take us on the journey that how you broke away from your addiction, and then the impressive work that you're doing at Hope in Health, at Rehabilitation, because I think that, and this is a crime podcast, the amount of addictions and that impact on crime, it's a one-way street. When I look at your life, if we stop the podcast here and I didn't know what you did in the future, I got to say, all the warning signs. I'm not a gambling man, but if I did gamble, I wouldn't have put money on you getting through without going to prison or dying. That seemed to be the trajectory that your life was on. But
I got close to both of them, very close.
So Nick, the first time you used drugs, where did you get it, or who supplied it to you? How did you?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the heroin, with the harder drugs, the first times I started using it, I was smoking it. So I used to go to these Spencer Street rave parties and stuff like that, you know, and then when I used to come down off the uppers and stuff like that, you know, my friends and I used to smoke heroin, you know. But yeah, when I was at boarding school, you know, just... mate, it was just a really fucking...
How did you hide it at boarding school, your heroin usage and addiction? How did you cover that up?
Mate, just because of the way, like, you know, like I wasn't one of those heroin addicts that would nod off, you know. Like, actually, towards the end, I actually did, like, you know, I started overdosing quite a bit, like, you know, my last relapse, you know, maybe it's because I'm a bit older or whatever, but back then, like, you know, I was just, it was like... mate, I honestly feel like it just it lifted me, it energised me.
So you'd present in class and you'd be alert and
man. The only time I was ever good at school was when I was on heroin. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and that's why no one knew. You know, like, you know, I thought I found this incredible life hack.
Did you have any close mates that knew? Did you share your secret with anyone close to you?
No.
Yeah,
no.
you just kept it. So you're carrying the secret.
Actually, I mean, yeah, I used with one. I had one other sort of guy my age that was using as well. But,
Carrying
but he wasn't at my school though. You know?
Okay. Carrying a secret like that would wear you down too.
It did, but it kind of thrilled me as well a bit, you know, like until I got a habit, you know, because until I got a habit, like I thought I could just always step away from the life, you know, like it was only when I got a habit, like it all, you know, it all got real fucking scary for me, you know, like, I was just like, fuck, you know, I've actually got this is now my life, you know, I was like, fuck, you know, and I just,
Scary.